Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Casual Ethnographer's first live session. Sorry I'm a little bit late. This is my first time going live, and I am not a technical person. So I have some notes here. I just wanted to go over some fun things about the holiday. Halloween came from a Gaelic holiday called Samhain. And I'll tell you right now, if you go to search for it to read up on it yourself, it is not spelled the way a native English speaker would think of it. It is Samhain, and I can put that in the description after the fact. But it is a ancient holiday of the Gaelic people. The Gaelic people are from Ireland and Scotland. And it's meant to kind of mark the end of the harvest season. It's considered like a veil between one time of year and another. And during Samhain, that veil becomes thinner. And at the end of it, so on November 1st, would be the Gaelic New Year. So on this night, it is believed that the ancestors can cross this veil and come into the world of the living. And so there are practices where you could welcome your ancestors, but also hide from those that you didn't want to see. And that is where this concept that modern, especially American Halloween celebrations have come from, where we dress up and run around the neighborhood. The dressing up during Samhain was to disguise your identity. Now, obviously, we spend a ton of money. It's a multi-billion-dollar holiday, candy and costumes and people decorating their yards and their homes and having parties. But during Samhain, in the village, in the community, a bonfire would be lit. And all of the homes would extinguish their hearths. And this bonfire in the community would be to ward off the spirits and honor the ancestors. And each individual home would come and take like a torch or something, take some of that fire home to light their own hearth, kind of a new beginning. The villagers also left food outside for wandering souls or deities, kind of the precursor to what we know to be is the treats, like the trick-or-treating. Druids performed divinations and rituals to protect through the winter. And costumes, here's another note, were, again, meant to disguise the spirits, confuse or appease the spirits. So how did we get from Samhain to Halloween? In the 7th century Common Era, Pope Boniface, I am not Catholic, I'm sorry. I'm sure there's a better way to pronounce that. The 4th established All Saints' Day, so the first day in May, and then it was later moved to November 1st. All Hallows Eve, which is today, October 31st, blended Christian and pagan traditions, becoming Halloween. All Souls' Day, November 2nd, encouraged prayers for the dead, and people exchanged soul cakes for kind of what became trick-or-treating. Irish and Scottish immigrants brought these customs to North America in the 1800s. And I don't know if you knew this, but if you have ever carved a pumpkin or seen carved pumpkins, that is an American thing. Traditionally, turnips were what were carved. I was just having this conversation with my daughters yesterday, I think it was, and they're like, "What is a turnip?" Because we don't eat turnips. But I was trying to explain, well, it kind of looks like a fat white carrot. And I'm like, how do you carve that? I don't know. They were very, very clever folks. But by the 20th century, then you saw parades, costumes, candy, and community events became the focus. So what about global variations? So there is in Mexico, and my apologies, I don't speak Spanish, Dia de los Muertos, which is honors the ancestors with ofrendas and marigolds. In Italy, it's Ognissanti and Il Giorno dei Morti, family cemetery visits, and pastries for the departed. In Japan, there was Oba, summer festival, celebrates ancestral spirits returning home. In the Philippines, that's a big one. It's spelled Pangaluluwa. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. But children sing for souls, similar to early European souling. And then in Ireland and Scotland today, Samhain fire festivals have seen a modern revival. Symbolism and modern reflections. So there's themes of death, rebirth, transition, nature's cycle mirrored in human life. It's a cultural way of coping with mortality and change. The witch archetype, often rooted in wise women, healers, and herbalists. Halloween's pop culture flair still carries ancient echoes of respect for mystery and the unseen. So when you see costumes, when you see candy, I know it's become very commercialized, very capitalism, especially here in the United States. It's hard to see what it used to be, but it really came from the belief system of the Gaelic people, and it's fascinating. And it's kind of when you think about it, if you could transport yourself back, say 1,000 years, 2,000 years, and science as we know it, we don't have ways they didn't have the ways we do now to explain certain phenomena. And so when I read about these cultural practices, I find it fascinating. I first found out about Samhain from a neighbor of mine years ago, because in her family, they still practice it. So at any rate, that was my little mini presentation about Samhain and Halloween. I have the chat open. If anybody is watching and they would like to ask questions, we can do a little Q&A with the remaining time. Let's see here if there's anything else I can just talk about while we wait for some questions. For those of you that aren't familiar with me, my name is Elizabeth. My moniker on the shorts that I do in the reels is the internet culture lady. I like to talk about culture. My passion is anthropology. I also find the other aspects of anthropology fascinating. So there's 4 disciplines within anthropology. There's cultural, biological, and archaeology, and then linguistics. So I find them all fascinating. My nieces and nephews call me Aunt Ellie, so that's where that comes from. When I first started this channel 6 months ago, I didn't know what it was going to become. I had some ideas. Those ideas didn't really pan out, but other ideas have been born, and I am very honored that so many people have chosen to subscribe to this channel. The last count I saw this morning was over 340 subscribers. So thank you. Thank you so very much for wanting to watch, wanting to hear what I have to say, especially for liking, sharing, commenting, interacting. Sometimes the shorts that I put out are truly just to spark conversation. So I see there's a question. Is it okay to ask about religious options? Just curious. I am not sure what you mean by that, but absolutely. If you want to ask me a question about religion, I will do my best to answer. If you're asking about my religious affiliation, I was raised Christian. My mother's family is relatively new to the United States. My grandparents on that side were both first-generation Americans. My grandmother was Danish, and my grandfather was German and French. And so my mother was raised Methodist. And around the time I was born, my grandmother left the Methodist Church and joined the Salvation Army Church. And so my mother went with her. So when I was around my mother's family, the Salvation Army was my home church. And then when I was with my father's family, they were all based in the El Paso, Texas area. His stepfather, which I knew to be my grandpa, I didn't know my dad's biological dad. He was a Southern Baptist preacher. So when I was in Texas, we went to Southern Baptist Church, which is very different from a Salvation Army experience. And for the most part, though, I was raised in the Salvation Army Church, and their main, I guess, focus is you serve God by serving fellow human. So we did a tremendous amount of volunteer work, and we started that very young. As I got older and I learned more about literature, about mythology, about history, I had a hard time reconciling everything with what I was being taught in church. And so I don't attend church anymore, and I don't follow any religion. As I tell my daughters, I've got one home today. I follow science. Science is my religion. So, but if you want to ask a specific question about religion, like my religious opinion, I'm not really sure what your question is. But at any rate, what do I do for Halloween? Maybe that's something that might interest people. A few years ago, I saw something on Facebook where this woman, I don't know if she ran out of candy. I don't remember the story exactly, but she started putting potatoes in her candy basket, giving out at her front door. And I told my husband, I was like, I'm going to do that. And he's like, there is no way. You're kidding. I was like, no, I just want to see. I want to see what's going to happen if I offer children candy and potatoes. So for the last few years, that is what I've been doing. When the doorbell rings and the kids say trick or treat, I hold out a bowl, and in it there is candy and a few potatoes nestled in. And I am not kidding you when I tell you that kids take potatoes every year. I don't know what they do with them, but we've become the potato house, and it's just our little fun thing. Otherwise, my husband, sometimes I go to, we'll take the kids out trick or treating in the neighborhood. This year we are expecting an absolute torrential downpour. I think they call it an atmospheric river. We had the same thing last year. It's going to be cold, breezy, and absolutely a soaker. So I don't know how many kids will get at the door. Okay, so I see the person who asked the question. I do respect that. Is really wonderful background. Really, potatoes, they have a good sense of health. Yes. So my husband and I wonder, what do the children do with the potatoes? Do they take them home and say, hey, Mom, can I have mashed potatoes? Can I have a baked potato? My husband thinks that the children throw them at each other in the street. I have no idea. I have no idea what they're doing with the potatoes, but it's just something funny we do. As far as costumes, though, we let our children pick if they want a store-bought or if they want to make one. My younger daughter, who's in the second grade, everyone say hi to Molly. My second grader is going to be a ghost. She chose the costume off of Amazon, and it looks kind of like a creepy Victorian era. It's got chains hanging off of it. It's got a veil. It's all gray and torn. And then my older daughter, who's a fifth grader, she wanted to be, and I am not good with horror movies, but there's a movie, I guess, called The Ring, where there's this creepy girl that's wearing like a white nightgown, and she's got all this long, dark black hair hanging in front of her face, and she kind of walks like this, and she's got a pale face. That is what she wanted to be. And we got the stuff for her, and then she realized that the makeup aspect of it is more than she wants to invest. So when she dressed up to go to school this morning, she wore the nightgown thing, obviously with clothes underneath it, and then she just put on respectable makeup and went out the door. So I don't know what she's calling that costume. She may still change her mind, because 10-year-olds do that. So I don't dress up. My kids were trying to encourage me to get a wig or whatever, but we don't really go all out for Halloween. So yeah. So a couple more comments. Wow, great. Sounds crazy. Yeah, actually, it's a great way to express inner world. Yeah. I think if anyone watches my shorts, you've seen that I made a friend via via Reddit recently, and she lives in India. And I asked her if she celebrates Halloween, and she said not really so much. Maybe individual people might have a little party or something like that, but in India, it's not really much of a holiday. My daughter's school is calling, so they hung up. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this for just a second. And, well, let's see here. How should I do this? I'm so sorry. My daughter has a fancy smartwatch that allows her to call me, so I'm just going to turn school mode off in case she's the one that's trying to reach me because my other daughter's home today. Okay, so we have one viewer right now. Do you have any other questions, even if it's not about Halloween? Anything else? I've got about 10 minutes left. Let's see here. What else can I talk about? Oh, let's see here. Hello, wish you prosperity. That's very kind. Thank you so much. That is such a kind thing to say. You're from Uzbekistan. There is a couple that I love to watch on YouTube, Matt and Julia. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they basically live a pretty nomadic life. They travel all over the place, and they mostly stick to like Russia and the different countries that are around Russia. And I do believe I watched an episode where they went through Uzbekistan. It's really fascinating. If you're not familiar with them, they would be a fun one to watch, whether you are in that part of the world or outside the part of the world. But I enjoy them very much. Let's see here. What else can I answer for you? If you guys watch my adventures with grain-free sourdough, Hilda, that I had been baking off of, she unfortunately did not make it. She got that pink slime again. So I've started a new one, and I decided to name this one after a Valkyrie. So this is Brynhildr, and I started her on the 21st. So she's 10 days old now, and she was doing fabulous. So I'm hoping to bake with her maybe as soon as tomorrow. Yeah, the grain-free sourdough is so tricky because, at least as far as I've been reading, most people, like, there's not much literature about the grain-free sourdough. So most of it is just trial and error on my own end. And regular sourdough, when they say that your sourdough is weak or what have you, that you can try rye flour, and these are just not options for me. So I've tried a few different things, and she's actually sitting on the stove right now. I just fed her this morning, getting warm. But see here, what else is going on in life? We're getting ready for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is in about a month. Oftentimes my best friend and her family, we combine forces. And so I messaged her a little bit ago, maybe a couple of days ago, and I was like, are you coming over for Thanksgiving? And she said, I'm not quite sure yet. My husband wants to smoke a turkey, so I don't know if we'll combine forces or not this year, which is fine. Let's see, we got another comment. Technology for saving the knowledge by electronic chips. Will it succeed in 20 years? Oh, I am so not a tech person, but saving knowledge electronically, that is fascinating, because I know that there were some, here in the United States, some indigenous groups that when phonographs, which is early records, first came out, they tried to record as many of their songs and oral histories that way. And what's tricky about that is you can save it on a piece of technology, and then technology moves ahead. And then unless you save the device that plays that piece of technology, then it makes it very tricky. And I think about this in a lot of different respects. So I have an uncle who had in the 60s and 70s, and I think he was done with it by the 80s, but he had a camera that recorded small reel to reel, I believe is what it was. And he took a lot of family videos, of my grandparents, of his children. And as time progressed, then that piece of technology became obsolete. We got camcorders, and now people can record anything with a cell phone. And I want to say I heard one of my cousins talking about, because she's very into audio visual stuff. She was trying to save those, and I'm trying to remember what she did, because there's no sound with those particular films that he did. I think she just set up the screen and played them, and then just used her camcorder to record them. So using electronic chips, so interesting. I don't know how they will try and save pieces of culture going forward, because then they also have to save the technology, or as technology progresses, then they have to resave that. Think of it in terms like if your grandparents had a favorite record, and then your parents started listening to 8-tracks, so then they needed to buy that album if it was available on an 8-track. Well, then cassette tapes came out, and then CDs, and then now no one has a physical copy, or rarely a physical copy, of a piece of music. Like my vehicle has no place, or to put a CD. You have to use the Bluetooth if you have music on your phone to get it to play on the radio. Whereas the car I had before that, my 2002 Chevy Impala, had a CD player. So it's a very interesting thing. My personal opinion is that if they're going to save knowledge and save culture electronically, they're also going to have to save the technology as they go and flip it. It is a fascinating idea. I remember when my mom moved out of an apartment she had, I think this was like 2012, she had boxes and boxes of 8-tracks, which was a form of a music player, big, bulky things, from her and my dad's music collection. My dad passed 30 years ago. And she's like, "Do you want them?" I was like, "Well, I like this music, but I have nothing to play them on." And so that's kind of why my opinion is you can't just save the technology or save the information on a piece of technology. You also have to save how you play it as well. Okay, we've got 2 viewers now. I said I'd be on until 12:15, but I can go a little bit later if anybody has any other questions. Let's see here. I'm just trying to think of what someone might. Oh, here we go. I think culture never was something for what someone shouldn't pay, because it was created by everyone who put it his own effort to make it for everyone. Culture is fascinating. Yeah, I think you shouldn't pay for culture, but paying for culture is also its own piece of that culture. Like, for example, if you are a member of a church, it is the culture to tithe, which might be construed by some people as paying to attend. I mean, they're not charging you, but you are expected when you attend church to tithe. And if you have a membership, let's say you're a member of Mensa, in order to maintain your membership in the club, you have to pay your dues. And that's just part of the culture of that group. Cultures can be macro, you can have a countrywide culture, or they can be micro, what's the culture like for this particular school or this particular household. So it's fascinating. So I see 2 messages that were retracted. Okay. I know that in the classes that I have taken, cultural anthropology professors have talked about macrocultures and microcultures, and you can one individual can belong to lots of different cultures. Me, myself, I live in the United States, so that's one culture. I live in Washington State, so that's a culture. I live in Western Washington, which has its own culture compared to Eastern Washington. And then I live in a smaller community, so that's its own culture compared to if I lived in Seattle. But I've lived in 4 different states. I've lived in rural areas. I've lived in cities. Like I used to live in downtown Portland, which was fun. It was so much fun. I don't think I could do it as a parent. I had no children, and so I didn't have to worry about strollers or parks or getting to and from school. But the culture of downtown Portland, at least when I lived down there, I moved in 2009. I loved that city. There were so many restaurants in the area that had different cultures of food. There was one building a little bit further. I lived up near the park blocks near Portland State University, very close to the museums. If I walked what would be north, I would pass this gorgeous library, and then a little bit further, there was this building that had a Persian restaurant and an Indian food restaurant, and there was a Mexican food restaurant, and then all over the area we had Brazilian food and Nigerian food. It was amazing. So there's another question. I totally agree. It's kind of something what our ancestors wanted us to learn from and understand the depth of life itself. Yes, I think that's, at least in American culture, what's kind of missing is that it's become, I watch this in my daughters who are young. It's all about consumerism, and there's not a lot of time spent learning where we come from and why we do certain things. I'm very blessed in that my daughters, especially my older daughter, wants to learn. When we garden or when we cook, she wants to learn not just how we do it, but why we do it. There is a banana bread recipe that has been passed down through the generations, and I've modified it to work for me, but I've also modified it to do other things too. And I have taught it to my nieces, teaching it to my daughters, and it's just a part of that family tradition. My daughters both carry names that we took from my family and from my husband's family, so they're rooted in the family. They know where they come from, who they're named after, what that person was about, which for us is important. My husband and I were both named after people. So it carries that lineage. It roots us. But in America, I see a lot of, especially if you watch, I tried to go on TikTok with this channel, and TikTok apparently did not care for the stuff that I put out because it showed one of the 30 videos I uploaded, and then that's basically it. So, but the consumerism is all about like, oh, I do this little dance and then I get 500,000 likes, and that's what's popular. But I spend a lot of my time watching documentaries, watching lectures. My favorite lecturer is Dr. Roy Casagrande. He talks a lot about history and how different cultures, clashed or blended, and what their governments were like. And that's the stuff that interests me. Let's see here. Yes, it's hard to keep curiosity when you have everything and don't really need to learn it, but at least people are living happy life. Yes, I still think that learning, though, is important. I have told many stories to my own daughters about what my grandmother would tell me. She grew up on a dairy farm with Danish parents. Her dairy farm was in Nebraska, and she was the middle of 5 children, and it was tough. She grew up during the Depression. She lost her father at 9. And what is it like to, okay, it's time to eat dinner. Go kill a chicken. She gave me graphic, gory details. I've explained that to my daughters. This is the fact that we can go to the supermarket and just buy a chicken in a bag is really, I think my great grandmother and my great grandparents would be absolutely shocked that this is just how we live. And I've explained to them the stories that my grandmother told me about living during the Depression, and how their community would come together. And like, for example, during the Depression, a lot of people would work for bartering. Cash was not really utilized in those smaller communities. And so my grandmother's brother had done a job for a neighboring farm and was paid in apples. And so he brought the apples home, and my great-grandmother was very excited because it's food, right? And so this dairy farm that she was running, now that her husband had passed, she had farm hands that worked for her that lived on the property, and then she had 5 children. And so being paid in apples was very exciting because it meant that they could have applesauce and they could have apple butter and apple pie. And there is a Danish, it's kind of like a fritter. It's called appelskiver. So she could make appelskiver. But yeah, it is. I agree with you. When you have everything, sometimes those some of the culture things don't make it through. I think the world that we're seeing now, all of the rapid change, and it's not just in the United States, it's all over the world. I think that all of us are going to see some hard times, and I hope that some of the culture in our respective areas can carry us through, or that even the fact that we have such a interconnected world that we can share with each other and figure out how to survive what's coming, the various hardships. So, okay, well, it is after 12:15 now. Let's see here. Natural products and fresh air sounds really great. I hope she is feeling good. Not sure who you're referring to. Are you referring to my my children because we live rural? I'm not sure who you're speaking about. But yeah, we do live in a rural area. We do have fresh air, and we are in the Puget Sound area. If you are not from here, you should. My grandmother. Oh, my grandmother passed away in 2008. She was born in 1923. So if we still had her, she'd be 102. And I remember when she was around 80, I asked her if she was looking forward to reaching 100. And she said, "Oh, absolutely not. I'm ready to see Jesus now." So no, she lived to her mid 80s. I want to say she was 86, 85, 86. And but yeah, she used a lot of natural products. She did not believe in a lot of consumerism. She was an amazing lady. She's a very tough lady. I think, though, a lot of us had grandmas that were tough ladies. That's just the way. That's the way we've got to be. But yeah, she was an amazing lady, and she did believe in natural products. She lived an interesting life. So she turned 18, graduated high school in 1941, and then later that year was the attack on Pearl Harbor, which, if anyone knows American history, plunged the U.S. into World War II. So my grandmother left her small farming community in Nebraska and moved to Chicago, where she worked in the steel mills. And my grandfather, whom she hadn't met yet, was drafted into World War II. He entered the army, and he was sent to Europe, where he was eventually captured as a POW. And I'm planning on talking about his experience. He wrote a couple articles, but I do like a Veterans Day special about his experience. But when my grandfather came home from the war, he met his sister's roommate, which was my grandmother, and they got married and had 2 kids, and here I am. But yes, I appreciate your condolences. She was a special lady. I was very lucky in that I lived in a multi-generational household. So she lived in our home about the time I was 3.5 until I was 18.5. And then she moved into a senior apartment building. But yeah, if she lived to be 102, she'd be a feisty old lady for sure. Okay, well, I am going to wrap this up. I appreciate the 2 of you that joined me today. And my understanding is that YouTube will convert this to just a long form video. So I'm not sure if it'll show up in the feed as a live or if it'll show up in the feed as a just as an episode. But if you are watching this after the fact as a recording and you have questions, feel free to drop those in the comments, and I'll be happy to to answer those. Next week, Friday, I will not be able to do a lunch with Aunt Ellie, the culture lady, because if you've watched some of my older episodes, I have a condition called hereditary hemochromatosis, and I go through regular therapeutic phlebotomies. And so next Friday, I will be having one of those, which means content might lag a little bit next weekend because I will be recovering from what is essentially blood loss. I don't know how much they'll take this time. It's usually anywhere between 250 milliliters and 500 milliliters of blood, which I do not get back. So, let's see here. Yeah, it was honor for me to learn and getting these teachings that you gave. Oh, I so appreciate that. And I appreciate the interaction. If this was something that you all find interesting, I hope that you let me know that. We can do this again. If there's a better day and time, we can toy with that too. But I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And my younger daughter, she has a half day today due to older daughter, parent-teacher conferences. She should be walking in the door in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to get ready for her to come home. And then we're going to get ready for Halloween, which I jokingly call Halloweeny. And I got to get the costumes going, get the candy ready, and hopefully the atmospheric river, nothing's falling from the sky yet, but hopefully it is not as bad as what is forecasted. So again, thank you all for joining me today. And I hope you continue to watch and like, share, subscribe, comment, all the YouTube-y things. And I will see you next time. Have a great day and happy Halloween and happy Samhain.